Okay, I want you to imagine a reality where the dawn of humanity isn't, bathed in the warm, golden light of some fertile savanna. Instead, picture an existence that is completely rewritten by the most brutal, unforgiving environmental determinism imaginable. We're diving straight into a deeply academic, serious archival translation today, known as Project Alternate Timeline Zero, and we're going to focus specifically on the era designated as the thermal convergence. We're really going to unpack what happens to the human animal, structurally and psychologically, when nature offers absolutely zero comfort, and our biology is forced into this dark, claustrophobic, and hyper-lethal corner.
Just listen to this. At the absolute zero of the timeline, the first human pair manifests not in a garden of abundance, but within the jagged, sulfur-choked perimeter of the Askja Caldera. This quote is pulled directly from the oral histories of the first awakening archives in Universe 01, and man, it really sets the stage. There's no Eden here. No gentle awakening of the species. Right from the jump, it's a brutal, immediate existential fight against the elements from the very first breath drawn into human lungs. I mean, you can almost feel the sting of that sulfur and imagine the immediate panic.
All right, so moving into part 1, the Askja Caldera Anomaly, a hyper-volatile sanctuary.
Now, in our baseline history, geography definitely influenced culture. But in Universe 01, the environment isn't just an influence, it's the absolute primary architect of humanity. To really grasp this determinism, look at these exact coordinates: 64.9631 degrees north, 19.0208 degrees west. These aren't just, points on a map for some grand exploration. They are the rigid, inescapable boundaries of human existence. There is literally nowhere else to go. This hypervolatile sanctuary dictates every single physical and psychological development of their entire species.
The environmental contrast here is honestly genuinely apocalyptic. The world outside this crater is locked in the Last Glacial Maximum, just a frozen dead Earth. It's surrounded by an unyielding literal mile-high wall of blue ice. But inside the crater, the Earth is bleeding fluid magma, and there's this atmospheric barrier of toxic gases that actually traps the volcanic heat, which creates this localized pocket of survival. It's basically a sanctuary surrounded by certain death. You either stay within the toxic warmth, or you step outside and instantly freeze.
Let's look at part 2. Vertical confinement and spatial shock, the death of wandering.
Think about the profound philosophical shock this environment forces on the primitive human psyche. In our baseline timeline, early humanity engaged with the environment horizontally, right? We gathered fruit, chased megafauna, expanded across vast plains. Our brains literally evolved to look out and explore the horizon. But in Universe 01, humanity experiences acute vertical confinement. If you step out of the caldera, you freeze in seconds. If you step too close to the central fissure, you vaporize. There is no horizon. The human mind is instantaneously stripped of wanderlust. It's dead on arrival.
So, survival immediately becomes this pure spatial equation. It is exclusively tied to your physical proximity to the heat fissure. The initial cognitive leap for these early humans isn't about wonder or curiosity or wanting to discover what's over the next hill. It's an intensely mathematical calculation of spatial and energetic positioning just to avoid dying. It's pretty binary. You are either in the narrow habitable zone or you cease to exist.
Which brings us to part 3, a radical biological mutation, adapting to the sulfur.
So the psychological shock is profound for sure, but the biological reality is just staggering. There's absolutely zero vegetative life available. No forests, no grass, no fruit, nothing. So how does a biological system adapt to that? Well, it mutates to consume the only organic matter capable of surviving the sulfurous water. Hyperdense mats of extreme heat-resistant cyanobacteria, basically volcanic algae. They have to harvest this stuff from the very edges of active geysers. And because of the environment, this diet is exceptionally high in iron and lithium, which forces a complete, radical departure from our standard human biological baseline. Over successive generations, this nightmare environment forces a radical timeline of mutation. Step 1 begins with the forced consumption of that iron and lithium-heavy volcanic algae we just talked about. By step 2, we see something incredible happen: the complete cessation of glucose and carbohydrate reliance. The body literally just abandons that evolutionary pathway. And finally, in step 3, a highly efficient lipid thermal metabolism develops. This is a profound evolutionary shift. The human body actually begins utilizing ambient environmental heat to supplement its biological energy production. They are, quite literally, biologically merging with their geothermal environment. It's mind-blowing.
And that brings us to part 4, Society by Thermodynamic Equilibrium, the thermal share.
I want to read this line from the Thermodynamic Council's oral history. They state, "Space inside the active caldera is mathematically limited. The first tribal expansion cannot expand outward." Really listen to the absolute, terrifying gravity of that situation. This is not a philosophical choice regarding community size. It is a strict, undeniable mathematical constraint. You can't just pack up and migrate over the next hill to start a new settlement when things get crowded. The space you have right now is the only space your species will ever have, period.
Naturally, this creates a massive philosophical divide in how society even forms. Our baseline concepts of land ownership, of borders, of expansion, the very ideas of mine versus yours, are completely meaningless here. Juxtapose that with the Universe 01 reality, humans are sleeping in overlapping biological layers inside ancient basalt tubes carved out by lava flows. They rely entirely on their collective body mass and the seismic heat retention of the rock just to survive the planetary night. Property is an illusion. Collective physical warmth is the only reality they have.
This incredibly harsh reality leads us to the definition of a completely new societal paradigm, what they call the thermal share. It's a proto-community structure where society is formed not by the philosophical social contracts of guys like Hobbes or Locke, but by a shared, desperate thermodynamic equilibrium. Your neighbor isn't just someone you trade with or casually tolerate across a fence. No, your neighbor's physical body heat is a strict structural requirement for your own cellular survival. The community isn't a choice, it's a mathematical and thermal necessity.
Which leaves us with a deeply provocative, really heavy question to end this explainer on. If our baseline concepts of property, of expansion, and of society itself were merely the byproducts of a mild, open, and forgiving environment, what does it truly mean to be human when survival is dictated purely by thermodynamics? Are our most cherished human values and social structures simply an illusion created by environmental determinism? Think about it.